Critter Trade's here, and I'm going to show you how to apply vinyl decals and remove them the right way. I worked at a sign shop for a really long time applying really large vinyl stickers, so I've done all this quite often. So removing them is actually pretty easy. All you're going to do is just peel them up with your fingernail if you can. If they come up in one piece where you can just peel them off, that's the best. If they start to break apart though, like this one seems to be doing, then what you're going to need to do is use a razor blade. And this one just isn't coming up with my fingernail very well. So you're just going to use a razor blade and slide it along. The biggest thing to note is that when you're using a razor blade, this is only for on glass. Do not do this if it's on your car's paint. It will scratch it up. And when you're doing it, make sure the razor blade stays flat. Don't get it at an angle and it can mar up the glass. So you're going to use that to get under it, and then you can peel it. Okay, even if the glass is tinted, because the window tint's on the inside of the window. Another good tip is you can use a heat gun to help a little bit if it's really sticky. I think just parking it in the sun so that the sun has a chance to heat it up a little bit helps a lot. Even in the winter time, it'll make a big difference. If you're working on the paint of the car, you're going to want to use something like a credit card to start scraping at. It's going to be a little more difficult, and a heat gun is going to be a lot more helpful in that situation. But glass is pretty easy to remove them. That's why I like putting decals on glass, just because they are a lot easier to remove. As you can see, it left a lot of residue on here. You can use the razor blade to get a lot of that residue off still, and then you can either use goof off or WD-40 with a microfiber and just scrub it up to get all this, the rest of this off. But a lot of it will come off still with a razor blade. That's how you remove a decal, and then again you'll want to use a little bit of WD-40 or goof off to get rid of the last little bit of the residue that's still on there. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to apply a decal. This is a very small one. It's going to be pretty easy to do, and you don't really need to use these methods I'm showing you. If you have a much bigger one, that's where these methods will become a lot more helpful. The first thing you need to do though is make sure that your glass or the spot you're placing it is really clean. I just usually use a microfiber or just do it right after a car wash. Just make sure it's also extremely dry. If you have a large decal, it's going to have what's called backing paper and transfer paper on it. And what that is the backing paper is what covers the stickiness of the sticker. So you're going to take that off, and then this is all sticky here. And then there's what's called the transfer paper here, which is what holds the vinyl onto the transfer paper. And all that does is it helps you apply it a lot easier. And it allows you to see where it's going to land when it's on there. With really small stickers like this one, you actually don't really need to use these methods. You can just pull it off, slap it on there, and you're good to go, just because it is so small. But with larger ones, you're going to want to use one of these methods, because otherwise it's really easy to get bubbles underneath them. And I'm going to show you the two different ways. So the first way is where you make a hinge at the top, and this allows you to line it up a little bit easier. And all you're going to need is some masking tape or blue painter's tape. If you need some of that, I'll put a link in the description for some good tape to use. And you're just going to make a hinge by putting the tape up along the top edge like this. You don't really want it to go too much past the sides, because then it'll stick on there. So make sure you make it end on the edges here. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to line it up. And the good thing about this method is it allows you to see exactly where it's going to go. So depending on how you want it to line up, you can move it, and you put your tape down, and then you can see, okay, is this exactly where I want it? And if not, you can move it. And the nice thing about that too is you can back up to see if it's lined up right, and you can make changes without having it stuck there and having to peel the whole thing back off. And then with this method, once you have it exactly where you want it, all you're going to do is you're going to hinge it up like this, peel the backing paper off, and then push it down starting from the top like this and out to the sides. You always start in the middle and push out to the sides to keep the bubbles out of the middle. And then again, you'll just peel the transfer paper off after you do that in the tape. Now the second way you can do it is what's called a center hinge, and that's for really large ones, and you can do those either left and right or up and down, depending on if the sticker is a really long one or a really tall one. Typically you want to make it so that the two sides, whichever direction you want to go, they're about equal sides. Now you'll want to use this method with one hinge at the top for medium-sized decals, and if you're using really big ones, you'll want to do a center hinge like this. So with a center hinge, it doesn't have to be exactly right. Basically what you want to do is you want to have the tape go across the middle of it. You can do either direction, line it up where you want it, And it doesn't matter where the tape goes because you're going to be peeling back the side. And again, you can see exactly where you want to do it, and if you need to change it, you can adjust it a little bit as well. For this method, you're going to peel it back, and then once you have it like this, you're going to cut this. You can cut it anywhere along here, it doesn't really matter. Just try and make it straight. When you cut that off, then you're going to push up from the bottom and stick it on. And then basically what this does is this acts like a hinge like the previous method. Then you can take your tape off. And then you peel up the other side. And you can peel this part off here. And then you do the same thing. You start from the middle, pushing your way down and out. Keep those bubbles off. And then no matter which way you put the sticker on, then the transfer paper, you just peel the transfer paper off. And sometimes it's opaque, and just go slow to make sure it doesn't peel the vinyl up as well. And again, you only really need to use these methods for larger stickers. And that's how you do it.